My name is Maggie Walker, and I have read Cress by Marissa Meyer, and it is 550 pages long. So, Cress is the third book in the Lunar Chronicle series, the first book being Cinder, and the second book being Scarlet. Now, it picks up where the gang has left off with Cinder, Thorn, Scarlet, and Wolf are flying around in a stolen government property spaceship, and they're trying to figure out how to prevent a lunar invasion from attacking the Earth, led by Queen Lavina, who is the Lunar Queen and is planning to assassinate the Emperor Kai on their wedding day, which is coming up rather soon. Now, it's also a dual story, also based on their new character Cinder, no, not Cinder, Cress, who is a lunar hacker. She's a computer hacker who lives in a satellite since probably about for 10 years. She has lived in a satellite with limited contact only to Mistress, whom she refers to, who is the right-hand man to Queen Lavina. And so she ends up sending out an SOS, which the spaceship that holds the gang in, and they go to rescue her. But as it turns out, that Mistress already knows about the attempted rescue, and so she basically locks Cress in the bathroom. And when Carswell Thorn, the pilot of the ship, tries to go rescue her, the Mistress ends up knocking him out, tying him to the satellite, and then just sends it out of orbit while Cinder, Wolf attempt to escape, but Scarlet end up kidnapped by the lunar forces. And they only addressed it a couple of times in the book, so we really don't know what happens to her for a while. And so Thorn and Cress are falling out of the sky in the satellite, and they manage to survive the crash and they land on Earth, but the Carl in the whole ordeal gets his head bumped and he ends up going blind because of it. And so they're trapped in the middle of the Sahara Desert, and they are just trying to find refuge somewhere because Cress has never been on Earth ever before in her life, and she hasn't even seen like actual solid ground for who knows how long. And eventually Cinder, Wolf, Thorn, and Cress end up getting together in the small village where Dr. Ireland, who has helped Cinder in the past and is also a lunar alien, I guess. Not like alien like he's from a different planet, but alien as in he is not legally allowed to be on Earth, as most lunars are. And what happens is that he somehow convinces Cinder that she is the long-lost princess of the lunar colony, and therefore she's the rightful heir to the throne, except Lanina doesn't want to share the throne, and that's why she's so bent on having Cinder killed, basically. And so it also turns out that Dr. Ireland is Cress's father, but they only address it a couple times in the book, and I'm not really sure the significance of it, so maybe it'll address it more in the fourth book that is coming out. And so what basically happens is that they basically go on a mission on the day of the wedding of Emperor Kai, king of the Eastern Commonwealth, and Queen Lavina, who's queen of the lunar colonies, and they kidnapped the emperor to prevent the marriage. And so they're trying to start a revolution to hatch up this plan that they have. And near the end of the book, they address where Scarlet is, and she is basically a pet to Queen Lavina's stepdaughter, Winter. And she's an odd little girl. And I feel that they're going to address her character more in the next book. And so the four main characters of this book are Cress, who is the new character in the series. She's very shy. She has no social graces whatsoever. Her only friend was a computer since she was a little girl, so she doesn't really know how to talk to people. And she ends up getting rescued by Carswell Thorne, who was introduced in the last book, Scarlet. And he's this very sarcastic, witty character. And he makes like all these like flirtatious gestures to Cress, but she has no idea that they are flirtatious things. But all she knows that she is in love with him. But she doesn't really know who he is. She only knows what she read online in the newspapers. And then there's Cinder, who is the main character, whose story is central around everything else. And in the beginning, it turns that Cinder is a cyborg, and they address that in the first book. And cyborgs are considered lesser beings, or that they shouldn't even exist at all. But what happens is that Lunars can manipulate their glamour and to make them manipulate humans, but Cinder is immune to that. And in the beginning, that's the reason why Lavina wanted her to be killed. But it turns out that Cinder is a lunar, and also that she might be the princess that has gone missing. And there was this whole conspiracy that she was plotting to murder the emperor, and therefore she's a wanted person. And she's also wanted by the Queen of the Lunars, and so that's that big whole ordeal. And they kind of reference Wolf a little bit, and he is introduced in the second book with Scarlet, the whole little spoof of Little Riding Hood. And he is a wolf lunar hybrid. So he's kind of like a werewolf alien thing. And for some reason, he's very attached to Scarlet, and he basically loses it when she's gone, so they have to sedate him most of the time because he just loses it. And the common theme, I guess, in the book is that basically anyone can be a hero. Basically, a cyborg, an alien wolf, a French girl who was kidnapped, and an alien and a blind pilot can go and try to save the two worlds from being destroyed by war. And so, two of the quotes from this, and I chose the first quote specifically because Cress is based off the story of Rapunzel, and in the traditional tale of Rapunzel, what happens is that the prince and Rapunzel end up falling out of the tower, and on the fall, the prince actually loses his eyesight. And I chose this quote specifically because it addresses it. So this is right after the satellite fell to Earth and they managed to be alive. Maybe it would help if we turned on the lights. She paused. The lights? Are they voice activated? If the computer system went down in the fall, spades, it must be the middle of the night. Is there a port screen or something that we can turn on at least? His eyes were open, but he was looking blankly past Cress's shoulder. Captain, it isn't dark. I can see just fine. He frowned in confusion after a moment of worry. His jaw flexed. Please tell me you're practicing your sarcasm. And I had to shrink down the quote because it's basically a page long and that would just be too much to read. And basically he can't just believe that he's blind, and he kind of freaks out for a little bit, and Cinder is the one that has to calm him down. And the second quote is probably near the end of the book, where Cinder, Cress, Wolf, and Thorn actually managed to kidnap the Emperor on his wedding day, and he's on their spaceship now, and they're heading toward Lunar. And this is between the confrontation between the Emperor and Cinder, who have a history together. Fine, as your Emperor, I command you to return me to Earth, immediately. Cinder rocked on her heels. Kai, your Majesty, you may recall that I am lunar, and lunars are forbidden from being granted citizenship in the Eastern Commonwealth. Therefore, I am no longer your Emperor. You're no longer my Emperor. This isn't a joke. You have no idea how seriously I'm taking this. And once again, I had to shorten the quote because it just addressed some eternal turmoil with Cinder. And I personally like the book because I'm a big fairy tale buff. I love fairy tales ever since I was little. And so I just like how it like mixes fairy tales and sci-fi together. And I would recommend it to anyone who likes fantasy or sci-fi because it addresses both. And it's very witty writing, especially when it comes to Captain Thorn, because he's the comedy relief of the story. And that is my book report.